Hi guys, welcome back. This week I'm talking about iPhone 14. I've had it for around about 3 months now. I bought it on the weekend of release, but it kind of caught me by surprise. At the Far Out event in September, I thought I'd got away lightly. I didn't think there was going to be that much that really interested me. But then, as you do, you start watching the event and AirPods Pro 2 took my fancy, so they went in the basket. A short while after that, I decided to get my first ever Apple Watch, the Apple Watch 8. I thought, I bought a couple as presents. Everyone raves how good they are and I was missing out. So I thought, okay, I'll give that a go as well. But that was it. That was all I was going to get. And then I started thinking about the iPhone 14. And after the embargo lifted and reviews started coming in on the camera, it really got me interested. And this was still on release weekend. So this is just 1 week after the event. I suddenly decided, okay, I was going to jump in and get it. Now, let me explain why I made that decision back in September. I started this channel shooting on an iPhone 12, a standard iPhone 12, which is why the footage was not the best, I'm going to be honest with you. And I wanted to give this channel a boost. I wanted to give you guys something good to look at. So I decided that I needed to get a better camera. Now, okay, I've just bought myself a Canon, but I was thinking at that point, I don't know how to use a camera. I'd probably waste a lot of time trying to learn how to use it, have a lot of downtime, miss deadlines. And I thought, well, at least with an iPhone, I'd know what I was doing. And I've been delighted. But that was the reason that I got the iPhone predominantly back in September. It was for the video, so that I could use the video side of the camera setup for videos on this YouTube channel. So after I'd made the decision that I was going to get the iPhone, then I had to decide on the spec that I was going to choose. And as I say, it was very much a business-minded decision. It was going to be used for this channel. So storage was clearly going to be important for me. I'd also thought I wanted the 14 Pro Max. If you remember on last week's video, I've always said I love big screens, whatever it is, desk monitors, laptops, you name it, I like big screens. So I thought I wanted the 14 Pro Max. But certainly in the UK on that weekend release, there was no 14 Pro Maxes with any decent amount of storage in. So the phone that I ended up getting was the 14 Pro in deep purple with 1 terabyte of storage. I just knew I was going to be shooting a lot of videos, so storage was important for me. I wanted to have plenty of storage in there, and I decided to go up from 512 to 1 terabyte just to make sure I had plenty of space to shoot the videos, even though I delete the videos off of the phone as soon as they're sent over to the Mac and backed up. Still, I needed enough space initially to record them on the phone. So that was the phone I chose, and that's what I've been using since September. And you know what? The fact that they didn't have any 14 Pro Maxes actually was a real spot of luck. It kind of played into my favor. It was just a little bit of good luck going my way because this 14 Pro is already plenty big enough as it is. Any bigger, and I think it would just be too cumbersome to carry around. I take it out in the mornings with me when I'm doing my cardio. I take it everywhere with me, and it is big and heavy enough as it is. It weighs just a fraction under 8 ounces, about 250 grams. And you have got a great camera on it, but of course you pay dearly for it. The weight of that glass makes this camera very heavy. And I've never once felt that the screen was too small. So I'm actually really grateful that I didn't get the Pro Max. And if you're looking to get yourself a deal over the holidays, just bear that in mind. This is somebody that loves big screens, and even I'm happy with the 14 Pro. So just go gentle if you're thinking about the 14 Pro Max, because it is going to be a big, big, cumbersome, heavy lump of a phone, and it won't really sit in pockets very well. I just think it might be a little bit overkill. Enough of all that though, let's start talking about some of the details on the phone. And first of all, I'm going to start off with the screen. On the whole, the screen is really, really good, but there is one problem with it that I'm not really very keen on. First of all, the 2000 nits of max brightness, really good. That means if you're outdoors in direct sunlight now, there's no need to shield the phone to read your mail and messages. So that was a big improvement that works really well. And the 120 Hertz adaptive refresh rate, the ProMotion screen on the phone, I think it's more usable and more noticeable on the iPhone than it is on the MacBook Pro or the MacBook Air that I've got. I don't know if it's the smaller dimensions of scrolling between the screens, side to side, up, down, but it's just so smooth that it really, really stands out that you have got ProMotion on there. And it's one of those weird and funny things. You wouldn't buy a phone because of it necessarily, but once you've had a phone with it, you wouldn't want to go back to having a phone without it. Now we come on to Dynamic Island. For me, and I don't know if I'm being odd, I don't know if I'm the one that's out of step, but I'm not particularly a big fan of it. Yeah, you get some lovely little graphics up there, every AirPod Pro when you're pairing them up. You get your podcast art up there, you get your album art up there. But you know what? I never had a major problem with the notch before. Whereas now we've got Dynamic Island, I'm noticing the top of the phone more. So it's kind of almost counterproductive for me. I'm noticing the element at the top of the screen more than if nothing was happening there. Maybe I'll get used to it. I know more and more apps are coming on board. So maybe as they come online with it, I'll find more benefit for it. But at the moment, I'm not a massive fan of Dynamic Island. And I can honestly tell you that I don't ever use it. There's no reason for me to go and use it. I remember everyone was setting a timer going when it launched, but it's just as easy to set a timer via the voice assistant Siri, isn't it? So you don't need to go and use Dynamic Island. So that for me, a little bit of a waste. Now, the one thing that I said I wasn't too keen about on the screen is the fact that it scratches really, really easy. It's supposed to be the toughest glass they've ever put on the front of an iPhone. But once I started looking into it, I'm not alone. I went onto Google and there's a whole load of forums about people having scratches on their iPhone. Now, I had my iPhone 12 for 2 years and there was barely a mark on it. And the iPhone 14, within a couple of days, there is one scratch on there. And I thought, that was me being careless. I didn't know how. It's not what I'm like. I'm pretty careful with my stuff. But it's not. There's definitely an issue with the front glass on these iPhone 14 Pros. And I'm not alone. If you go onto Google, you'll find other people complaining. But I don't know, have you got any scratches on yours? I haven't got a screen protector on it. But then again, I never have had. So I don't know. Let me know if you've had any problems with that. But that is the one thing that I wasn't so keen about on the screen. And then one last thing about the screen is the always-on display. Now, I've never used an Android phone. I understand that they've got it really well sorted out on Androids. But I wanted to try it. I like innovation. I like to try it and back new things. I've left it on for 3 months, but finally, it got the better of me. Why? Well, it's that thing that it's always kind of on. It's never dark. Now, I know there is an update coming in 16.2, iOS 16.2, which I think is out by the end of the year. But until then, I'm leaving it switched off. Not only is it annoying and distracting because you always see your messages and it looks like the phone is on all of the time, but also it does affect the battery life. And the battery life isn't as good on this phone as I was hoping anyway. Back in the back end of the summer, I went over to Brussels to meet creator Patrick Rambles, and I had the phone with me all day long. And it barely made it through a 12-hour day. I had to do a quick top-up of juice in the airport. Someone was kind enough to lend me a charger. But even then, when I got back to Heathrow in London, I was down to less than 5%, and that was fully charged when I left about 4 in the morning. So a 12, 13-hour day, and that phone was shot. Now, I did have always-on display on back then. Perhaps I should have turned it off. But as I say, I've given always-on display a really good crack. I'm going to wait for the 16.2 update, and then I'll try to see if it's any better, because I believe then that the always-on display is going to go black. You can set your wallpaper black and just have the time at the top. So maybe then I'll switch it back on. The fit and finish of the phone, as you'd expect, is really good. The bands around the side haven't marked at all, and that lovely satin feel they've got on the back of the iPhone, I can't help but touch it. I tend to go caseless. Certainly at home, I always take the case off, but it is just a beautiful tactile feel on the back of the phone. So fit and finish is really great. The speakers, they are better than before, but in all honesty, rarely do I use the speakers on the iPhone because I'm always pairing them up with the AirPod Pro 2. I've made a couple of videos about that, and I'll leave a link to one of those just up there so you can watch that video a little bit later on. But if you haven't tried AirPod Pro 2, do yourself a favor. The active noise cancelling is unbelievable. Those paired up with the iPhone 14 Pro, just great way to listen to any kind of content. So the speakers, yeah, they are a bit better, but do yourself a favor, get some AirPod Pro 2. Let's talk about the camera now, which is the main reason that I bought this iPhone 14 Pro. You've got 3 cameras to choose from on iPhone 14 Pro, and I've got nothing but good things to say about them. Of course, the main camera is a 48 megapixel camera with the equivalent of a 24mm lens on it, and it gets fantastic results. You've got 2 other cameras as well, both of which are 12 megapixels. You have got a ultra-wide lens and camera, which is a 30mm lens, or equivalent to a 30mm lens on the ultra-wide camera, and the telephoto has got the equivalent of a 48mm lens on it. Now, I always leave the camera set in ProRAW when I'm shooting stills photography. The kind of work I do, it's great to have as much information available as possible. And to be honest, there's not much noise on them. The blacks are pretty good, and there's a lot more information in the shadows as well. And even the whites hold up really, really well. So that 48 megapixel camera has been just a dream to use. I've got some great results with it, and night shooting is good as well. The files when you're shooting in ProRAW are, well, they're big, but they're not prohibitively big. They're around 40 to 60 megs, depending on the conditions that you're shooting in. So as long as you've got a decent amount of storage on your phone, you'll be absolutely fine. And as I say, I always leave it set in ProRAW when I'm shooting stills photography. And I've really enjoyed using the macro lens. That is wonderful to use. You get some fantastic and really creative results out of using it. So the camera, the still side of the camera, has been fantastic. When it comes to the video side of the camera, you've got two options, cinematic mode or straight video. The straight video actually does give you some very subtle depth of field anyway. That surprised me when I started using it. So you can just shoot straight there. I don't use ProRes. I find the files were so big. If I was shooting a video, say for this channel, generally a 10-minute video would be about 25 to 30 minutes of recording time. And well, to be honest with you, the files are about 30 gigs. They're just too big. So you need to bear that in mind. I didn't see the benefits, to be honest, and I found them so hard to get off the phone. AirDrop you can forget, Bluetooth isn't up to it. The only way that I found I could get any files off the phone was by using a lightning cable and then using image capture on the Mac. But even so, because of the speeds of the lightning cable, it was still really, really slow. So I've stopped using ProRes because the only small benefit I saw was in the skin tone. And even then, it was ever so marginal. On the cinematic side of it, it's much more manageable. I leave it set to about an f-stop 6.3, gives me a soft enough blur, I think, for the kind of results that I like. And if you've been watching these videos, that's how I've been shooting them recently. And the cinematic mode means that the file size is much, much more manageable, and you can AirDrop those off of the phone over onto your Mac. Just beware, though, that there will be some processing to be done on the phone before it sends it over to the Mac. And that's the only time I've ever felt the iPhone get hot, is when it's processing those cinematic videos. But that's the way I've been shooting the videos recently for this channel. So if you've liked those, there you go. F-stop 6.3, cinematic mode, 4K, 30 frames per second. You can thank me later. Of course, you've got the action mode as well. Now, I've only used that once or twice. It does work, but just be aware you need really good light, preferably daylight, to get results out of it. But if you are moving as you're shooting, it does a pretty good job, and you don't need to be packing gimbals with you and taking gimbals with you anymore. So is this phone for you? Well, I guess it depends on what your user case is. It is kind of a professional level phone. The functions on it, certainly from the camera point of view, are geared towards professional use. Now, if you've got a 12 or 13, a Pro 12 or 13, you could probably wait on, and I'll tell you for why. Because in only a few months' time, I know it sounds a long way away, but in September of next year, in 2023, we're going to get iPhone 15, and that will probably have USB-C Thunderbolt connector on it for the first time. That will make getting these big files, video files, photo files, whatever, off of your phone that much easier for the first time. If it is Thunderbolt, which is what they're saying is going to be on the Pro level iPhone 15s, then that is suddenly going to open up a whole new world. It's going to make the phone a lot more practical. So if you can possibly wait for just those few months, it may be worth doing it. I've come out of contract now. This is the first time I've ever not had a phone supplied to me by a carrier. And you know, I've worked it out over the course of the 2 years. That saving I'm making from having a phone supplied by a carrier to just going onto a data only is going to save me about £1,400, which virtually pays for this phone. Now, buy carefully. They are expensive, however you spec them up. Mine cost me £1,700 in the 1 terabyte spec that I've got. So you don't want to make any mistakes and have buyer's remorse. Always go for as much storage as you can. You're getting a pro level phone here that will make, or has the ability to make, big files. So don't be using it hoping that you've got enough space on the phone to be able to use the functions and the great cameras that you've got available to you. So do try and choose at least 512, but just choose wisely. I have been over the moon with it. I really have. I wouldn't be without it. It was one of those things I was nervous at spending so much money and buying, but now I have, and now been using it for the last 3 months. I would not be without it. It is such a good phone. The cameras on it are the best cameras I'd ever had until I bought this Canon, and that is saying quite something. It is a great phone to use. And apart from the screen scratching easily and the battery life not being quite as good as I would have hoped, it is an absolute wonderful, wonderful phone. But if you can wait for that Thunderbolt next year. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you've got a few moments, why don't you hang around and I'll leave a link at the end where you can watch a video about the MacBook Air. Guys, I shall see you next week.